You're listening to the Inside the Mix podcast with your host, Mark Matthews.
Hello and welcome to the Inside the Mix podcast. I'm Mark Matthews, your host, musician, producer, and mix and mastering engineer. You've come to the right place if you want to know more about your favorite synth music artists, music engineering and production, songwriting, and the music industry. I've been writing, producing, mixing, and mastering music for over 15 years, and I want to share what I've learned with you. Hello, folks, and welcome back to the Inside the Mix podcast. As always, if you are a returning listener, a big welcome back and a belated Happy New Year as well. I think at the point of this episode going live, it now has been, well, we're over a week into 2024. And if you are a new listener, a big welcome. Make sure you hit that follow button on your podcast player of choice. And if you're watching or listening to this podcast on YouTube, make sure you hit subscribe so you're notified whenever there's new content on my YouTube channel. So at the beginning of every year, I always do a sort of yearly forecast and put plans in place of how I want to grow the podcast and also how I want to grow my other business as well, Synth Music Mastering. So I've got some exciting stuff planned and you'll see that rolled out over the next 12 months. But I find it really useful just to look back at the previous year and just analyze what went well, what didn't go well, opportunities taken, opportunities missed, and just how I can take that forward into the new year. So I'll let you in on the big goal for the podcast. I want to get this podcast, Inside the Mix, into the top 10% of all podcasts. And I think I read a statistic that there's about 4.5 million podcasts. So that will be quite a feat. And at the moment, it's in the top 25%. To get it in that top 10%, I need over 400 downloads of a new episode within the first 7 days. And at the point of this episode going live, we're sat at around 300. But I think it's an average over 12 months. So it was slightly less at the end of 2023 because there was growth throughout 2023. So by the end of the year, I want to get, on average, over 400 downloads for a new episode in the first 7 days. So help me, folks, any way you can. Share the podcast, leave comments, tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your family, tell everyone, and help me get to that top 10%. So I should have probably said the reason I want to get into the top 10% is not so I can make money off sponsorships and adverts and all that rubbish. It's purely because getting in that top 10% would push me out to a wider audience on these podcast platforms and just help more people, because that is the goal of this podcast. It's not to make money from advertising and sponsorships. It's to help more independent artists and producers just to better their production game and also bring on more guests and do other bits and pieces as well, because I love networking with you guys, the audience, and these audio engineers and producers and artists from around the world. And it's been an amazing 2.5 years, and long may it continue. So that is the goal. That's why I want to get in that top 10%. It's just to help more people. So as I mentioned just now, just any way you can help, it would be greatly appreciated, folks. Anyway, I've waffled on for long enough. So let's get into this episode 124. And in this episode, I invited back Sunglasses Kid. Now, Sunglasses Kid appeared on episode 46, all those episodes ago. And this was before he struck viral gold on TikTok and Instagram with the classic point of view content. So I go into more detail in terms of where Sunglasses Kid was at in episode 46 in this conversation in this episode. But the idea was just to look back and analyze the 12 months in between and that viral success. So we discussed going viral overnight and Sunglasses Kid's response to that, opportunities and successes as a result of this virality, and also interactions with countless numbers of incredible producers and artists as well. And also, it's important that we chatted about challenges and the negative side of going viral as well, and what that then brings to you as an artist. We also look back at the previous 12 months, and I asked the question, what advice would you give yourself 12 months ago in response to what you've had happen over the last 12 months? I hope that makes sense. And then we also dive into future plans for Sunglasses Kid. So it's a really exciting episode. I do mention it in the chat that we have, that at the time of episode 46 going live, Sunglasses Kid had just joined TikTok and had about 5,000 followers. So it's really interesting 12 months later to see the change in landscape. So without further ado, let's dive into this episode. So in this episode, I am very excited today to welcome a returning guest. We've got Sunglasses Kid back. So if you are a regular listener of the podcast, you would have listened to our first chat way back in episode 46. And this is now episode 120 something, if I'm not mistaken. I can tell you which number it is. Anyway, but it was episode 46. And we were chatting about all bits and pieces, which I'm going to go through in a minute. So since then, if you're familiar with Sunglasses Kid, you will know that in the last year, it's been quite an eventful year for him, in particular on social media. You would have seen it grow exponentially. So today we're just going to catch up on what's happened in the last 12 months. Welcome back, buddy. How are you? How are things?
I'm good, yeah. Yeah, they're things are in a kind of weird place. It's in a place of sort of everything's happened and nothing's happened, and some things have happened and some things are like almost happening. I'd love to say my life has completely changed, but it hasn't. It's kind of the conversations I'm having have completely changed, but my current situation is not particularly different from it was last year. But it is and it isn't. It's hard to explain, really.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I know there's some stuff going on in the background that you can't explicitly mention, but I can imagine it's very exciting stuff. So before we dive into like chatting, as it were, I'm just going to recap the audience if they haven't listened to our first episode, our first chat back in episode 46. So I'm just going to pick some bits out there because I listened to that episode back just now. And there's some really interesting stuff in there. So you mentioned about the 30-year cycle in a decade of interest, and we're entering the 90s, which kind of leads on nicely to the next part. And you also mentioned about how you were fed up of dark cinematic music and you were inspired by Mitch Murder and his sort of approach with a fun and silly but well-executed strategy, which also feeds into the narrative of what we got with this episode today. But importantly, now this is the important part, when we first spoke, I mentioned this off air as well, you were just joined TikTok, and you were 2 weeks into your TikTok adventure. So this was September 2022. And you mentioned that you had 200 followers, which then jumped to 5,000 off the back of a video of you just jamming on the piano. And that had got 100,000 views. So this is kind of like the seeds of this legendary sort of point of view content that you've now got going on. So I think it'd be quite cool just to maybe dive into that a bit. So for our audience who aren't familiar with this concept and maybe not have seen it before, can you share what basically changed in your social media strategy to achieve this incredible success that you've seen over the last 12 months?
Well, I don't know if it's incredible success, but I suppose it's, yeah. So, yeah, I suppose like, I can't remember what it was, the video that I'd posted when I just joined TikTok, but I don't think it was that. But I'd been experimenting with, I like spent a long time before joining TikTok, like watching what was doing well on TikTok and kind of going, it's really like a people-driven platform. And what I had been doing on Instagram to date before joining TikTok was sharing like clips of movies, photographs. I think also there was a lot of denial going on Instagram about the fact that Instagram was moving towards a video first platform as well. So I was like, if I join TikTok, I got to do it. I've got to play the game. Like, if you don't want to play the game, then don't join TikTok. And I was like, well, the only game in town is being on camera, and I've got to do something on camera, and I don't quite know what that is. But what I don't want to do is start spending my life making videos for TikTok instead of making music. So whatever I do needs to be like a sustainable thing that's not like going to take loads of effort. Because what I don't want to do is like make a really high effort, high energy, intense video that then goes viral. And then it's like, you've got to prepare for success as much as you plan for, people often plan for failure or nothing will happen, but you make, you put loads of effort into making a video and then you go viral. The audience people would then expect you to make another one of those. And then the next thing, you've committed to making these really like hardcore videos. So I was like, it's got to be something sustainable, not too difficult, but low effort that I can keep doing again and again and again. Because what I was seeing in TikTok was this formula for success was kind of repetition, which feels very counterintuitive to people who are like creative, who are thinking the formula should be being original every time, doing something different. And actually, you can see on the content on social media that performs well, there's actually repetition is like one of the kind of keys to it. And I've been watching this woman, I forget her name now. I think it's Christina something. It'll come to me in a moment. She's a female comedian in America who was doing these skits on Instagram on a green screen where she would sort of recreate different retro sort of scenes. She was playing around with all kinds of eras, 90s, 2000s, and she would play lots of multiple roles. So she had ways of doing on a green screen where she'd have conversations with herself, and she would have these captions that would be like, POV, it's 1999 and you're on your first day in high school and the mean girls arrive, and she'd play out the skit.
I can see it. And
she had like 150,000 followers and huge engagement. And I was watching this going, this is like an audience that should be interested in like nostalgia and music and should be interested in like 80s and synthwave. And yet all the engagement happening on my platform is like other musicians giving their feedback on like my music and the conversations, people going, oh, try a different snare. And it occurred to me that like a lot of musicians like social media content, at least last year, is inviting a conversation about the process, right? You're like, this is my new synth. This is what VSTs I use, right? And outside of like a musical like audience, the average person isn't interested like in your synths or doesn't know what a VST is, right? Because we're all living in our little bubble. And so I spent a long time sort of watching those going, is there a way for this idea to map onto like a musical setting? So I don't claim that it's an entirely original idea, but it was I suppose it was an original framing of it and going, how could this work in a musical setting? And then it seemed to just capture people's imagination. And I was kind of A/B testing. I was testing quite a lot going, is the caption actually doing anything? Is that really the thing? And people would start interacting with it in the comments and then start effectively like script writing. So I'd write, like POV is 1985 and you're undercover in Miami or something. And people would start giving their pennies worth. And I realized this is brilliant. It's working on a number of levels because you've got people are listening to the music, which is playing around in the background whilst they're all reading the comments, playing 80s tropes. It's inviting people as well to kind of engage, not in the process, but to engage in what the music makes you feel. So it's inviting the audience into your like imagination. And it was also telling the story of my love of cinema, which I've always had. So it felt like suddenly the perfect like frame in which to present the music. And then also another like byproduct of it has been that I've had lots of filmmakers reaching out to me because it's speaking their language as well, which is this kind of picture this scene, imagine this thing. So it's also sort of demonstrating an ability to score, to underscore like a scene or a concept. So, I mean, if you are doing that, because I've seen other people doing variations of what I do, but the music isn't maybe not always exactly underscoring what the scene is that they've described, if you see what I mean. So maybe that's where my niche lies, in my ability to write something that sounds, I mean, I suppose I'm tapping into film score kind of territory. And I was just thinking about what you said about moving away from dark cinematic. And then ironically, I've started moving sort of back towards it a little bit, or certainly it's a bit darker for me anyway.
What you mentioned there about the music suiting the situation is key, because yours does, and there's no getting away from that. And I have seen others doing it, and then you can see where the differentiation is there in terms of somebody who's just trying to put up a POV post and trying to do something similar. And it does capture the imagination. Like, it's featured on radio too. So for the audience listening abroad, we've got the BBC Radio, which is probably known worldwide anyway. But it was featured by Scott Mills, wasn't it, on Radio 2? And he featured it. And it's also featured on a Chicago news, on Chicago TV station in Chicago as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know why they were in. I think I was one one of the videos was going viral on TikTok, and I think this local Chicago news station had a segment they regularly did on like viral videos, and they just found me and did a thing on it, which was quite fun, I guess.
I'd love for that. But the Radio 2 one was good. I listened to it, and they were fully involved in the moment. You could hear them describing it and how they felt and the emotions with it as well. So you're certainly capturing it there. And what you said, it resonates with me, because I was having this thought earlier about, you mentioned about if you put up content that is explaining, I've got this synth. I did this earlier, and I put up a post doing the exact thing you mentioned, which is like you say, this is how I did it. And that's going to appeal to a certain person, but it's not necessarily going to, I don't know, maybe it could set the world alight, I don't know, but it's not going to appeal to a wider audience, because I think you're tapping into those who like that retro sound and also film score. You've got so much going on there, which I think is really important. One thing I was going to ask you there, you mentioned about music and you're creating this content. Are you still, I know you put a song out, or you did a collab with Pensacola Mist, but are you still planning on releasing music in the near future? Or is it sort of, I know you've put posts, I've seen you said that you can find my music on Spotify and whatnot, but is there going to be any new Sunglasses Kid stuff?
We'll be right back.
Are you facing a common hurdle in your music journey? If mastering feels like an enigma, trust me, you're not alone. Whether you're an independent artist or a music producer, the struggle with unbalanced masters that just won't translate across various devices and environments is all too familiar. Ever found yourself puzzled, wondering, why don't my masters match my references? Perhaps you've delved into countless hours attempting the DIY route, only to find the end results unsatisfactory. Maybe you've experimented with numerous silver bullet plugins or even AI solutions, but the desired outcome still eludes you. Or maybe you're currently collaborating with an engineer and yearn for something fresh and different. That's precisely where I step in. At Synth Music Mastering, I'm offering a special opportunity, a one-time free test master available for a limited time. Picture elevating your music with my unwavering dedication to quality and a welcoming, personalized approach that you just don't get with the big mastering studios. What's even better? It's entirely free. All you need to do is submit a finished mix. It's a no-brainer, right? So seize the chance now to get your free test master. Simply click the link provided in the episode description or head over to synthmusicmastering.com.
Yeah, I mean, so what happened the day I went, because what happened was I had started kind of going viral on TikTok, and then I hadn't really been paying much mind to Instagram, because I had written off Instagram. I was like, it's nigh on impossible to go viral on Instagram. I'm not nothing. If I do anything with this idea, it's going to blow up on TikTok, not Instagram. And so I stopped paying attention I was posting those videos onto Instagram, but not really paying any attention. And then like one Saturday morning, I wake up and go, holy shit, I've just like gone from, I've got 60,000 followers. And I was like, I swear last night I had 30,000. And what I'd not been paying attention to is if you don't keep refreshing the front of your profile, sometimes your follower count doesn't actually update. And I'd been slowly growing, but just not noticing. And I was like to my girlfriend, wow. She was like, well, how many plays has your video had? Someone famous shared it. And I was like, holy shit, this video's had like 400,000 plays. This video's had like 1 million plays. And I hadn't been paying attention to what was going on. And then it was almost like the second I noticed it, I started realizing, I was like, fuck, I think I'm going viral on Instagram. And like in the space of a cup of coffee, I gained like 7,000 followers on Instagram, like literally in the time it took me to drink a coffee. And then I started getting all these DMs from like blue tick people going, like so many people with a blue tick going, let's work. And I'm like, and I'm responding to people because I still was in my old headspace, and I'm like, hey, cool, I'm happy to chat. And then I'd go and look at who they were, and it'd be like multi-platinum, 3-time Grammy-winning producer for insert some of the most famous musicians working today in the US R&B and rap. And I had like numbers of people in my DMs asking me to send them demos and do stuff with them. And so all these videos that I was posting, I wasn't the music I was making, I was actually just demo dumping. I was just writing ideas. Like one of the videos that went the most viral, called, that's caption is it's the 1980 whatever, and there's a shootout in a warehouse.
In a warehouse, yeah.
I wrote that in like about 45 minutes, an hour or something. Posted it, didn't even think about it, walked away, and then the next day was like, fuck, I think I've gone viral. And so half these tracks aren't finished. They're literally not much longer than the video clip that you watch. Right? They're just these quick minute and a half ideas, and I was just machine gunning out music to try and grow my social channel, and also because I was just having fun. And then because I had all these producers reach out to me, I essentially took all of these tracks and put them all in a folder and unleashed them to a bunch of like big name producers who'd all reached out to me saying, have you got any beats, as they say. And so a number of those tracks, well, not a number, a couple of those tracks in particular got picked up and are sitting right now in potential placements with really quite famous people. But also over the last year, I've learned that shit can sound like it's going to happen and then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And so, but some of them have got to put in a bit of a car park where it's like, it would be an exclusive if it went ahead, but we don't know if it's going to go ahead. So what I was a bit nervous around doing was hastily releasing all this music because it was popular, and then fucking some deal because I had said something would be an exclusive, and then I've gone and dropped it as an independent release. And so it started all getting quite complicated. Like I had to get a lawyer over a couple of things that were being kind of discussed. And so I'm at this position where still there's quite a lot of stuff in limbo. It's a more exciting limbo to be in, but it's just so yes, the plan is at some point to take the tracks that I know I can do something with and put them together and finish them. So when people are like, where's the album, it's like, A, I'm not sure which one of those ones I can do something with, and B, I need to just finish them all. I need to extend them out into pieces because they're no longer than the video clip themselves. And so that's the limbo I'm in. But in between all that, yeah, I had all these detours where I've done things, jobs and composing jobs for people. So I've just kind of been, yeah, I don't know. And I still hold down a day job. So I'm like, everyone chilled. I'm still doing this at fucking night mostly. So I'm operating in a window of about 7 hours if I go to bed at 2 a.m.
Yeah, fair play. It's a lot to squeeze in, man. I think what you mentioned there about having fun, and I think a really good way to describe it is like what I mentioned earlier is like it's fun, but it's well executed, and I think that is the key to it as well.
Well executed fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's my
exactly
middle name.
Oh, that's so good. That's going to be the tagline for the episode. Yeah, I've also noticed as well, you get a lot of people ask you about what make of your sunglasses as well. Do you think there's going to be, at some point, that you're going to see a raft of people just wearing your sunglasses? And your watch as well. Your watch is quite well asked about, isn't it?
Actually, no, these actually are mine. Oh, no, these aren't mine. No, yeah. I got so many like sunglasses companies sending me, I just got boxes of fucking sunglasses they all hoped I was going to wear.
Yeah, bit of product placement.
But I bought, and watches as well. I got sent watches, like lots of little... But I don't even know why people are obsessed with this watch because I didn't buy it thinking it wasn't even like a deliberately, knowingly, particularly retro purchase. I wanted a watch that didn't. I like that style of watch, and I wanted a watch that the strap wouldn't deteriorate on it. And I found one that was all plastic, and it turns out this is the same watch that Tom Cruise wears in the first Mission Impossible. It's just a Casio Illuminated from like 1996 or something. And then the sunglasses, I bought them at a I always say thrift store online because most of my audience is American, but I bought them in like I can't remember if it was a charity store or a junk store, but it was in Brighton in the South Coast. And the arms, the handles on the sides, they sort of fold over, and I picked them up and I was like, that's unusual. I think these are actually real. I think these are like retro. These are vintage. I reckon these are 80s. and I bought them for like £5, but they've got no serial number, no make on them, nothing on them that indicates anything. And I've had so many like sunglasses aficionados who want photos going, like, I'll try and figure out where are these from. So I'm terrified. I'm like, if I drop and break these fucking things, and I've taken them to like gigs and stuff, I'm like, this is my entire identity now. Like if I lose these, and they're irreplaceable, no one can find any. And like everyone thinks that they've almost found the same pair, and they're not. No one can find one that's quite like them. But yeah, so stuck it in my FAQs in the description because I get asked it and still get asked it every fucking day.
Yeah, I love that FAQ that you put in there. I was reading through it the other day where you put, you can find my music here. I'm doing this. These are the VSTs I'm using. And I can see from that, I can guess in your DMs, you're fielding a lot of the same questions by the looks of things.
And the comments as well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of segues onto my next question. I mean, those aren't negatives. It's great having that engagement and whatnot. But have there been any from this? You mentioned there that you're doing this in your spare time as well. So obviously you're having to dedicate time to that. You got a day job also, and then you've got these songs that are currently in a car park put on a shelf that you're unsure what's going ahead and what's not. Have there been any sort of negatives? Or can you highlight any particular negatives over the last 12 months as a result of having all this interest on you online? Or maybe there isn't any.
I've been very lucky in that I was talking to you off camera about some negatives. I'll try and keep it drama free, but one of the big negatives is right at the start when I first started doing it. There was somebody else who was doing the same idea, and I was getting a lot of accusations that I was copying them with the POV thing. And so there was a while where I was starting to get like bordering on abusive messages, being accused of being unoriginal, being told I was ripping someone off. And then at the same time, I mentioned to you that around the same time this idea first started catching fire on TikTok, and I released the song for the video that was going gangbusters. And for whatever reason, the algorithm on TikTok, which I think is connected to the release of the song and it identifying my song as violating my own copyright, that's a theory. I get muted and my reach got killed. And in March, I think it was in like February or March, I got so pissed off with that whole situation that I was super close to just throwing in the towel with music entirely. I was like, I let it get to me quite a bit, and I got quite depressed about the situation. And I found myself just going, oh, fuck it, I can't be bothered. I can't be bothered with this shit. Why am I doing this? I thought that was going to be my moment to like blow up, and it was there, and then it was taken away from me, and I got really pissed off. And I don't know why. A part of me was like, no, I'm going to keep going for a while. And it was like in my sort of final kind of death knell that suddenly I like blew up in this like crazy way where I was like I literally, I don't think people realize how close I was to just going, I've been doing this for like 10 years, messing about, making 80s music. And it's taken me, I've been on Instagram for 7 years. It took me 7 years to amass 10,000 followers. And then 1 year to amass 332 more thousand more of them. It was mental. I was like, if I had been kept going at the rate I was going on Instagram, I was gaining like 30 followers a month. I was like, this is the only way. You've got the only strategy you can if you think you're going to grow. If you want to grow to like 300,000 followers, you don't realize how many it is until you start trying to do it for real. And then going at 30 a month, it would take me like 900 years or whatever the fuck it was to gain this. So the only way you're doing this is by going viral. This is the only way you're going to do it, is to go massively viral or to become hugely famous somehow. So there's only two ways to do it. So yeah, I don't know where I'm going with that, but yeah, that was a negative. I came pretty close. And then I suppose some other negatives have been that I've had a lot of people. I got quite a few people illegally started sampling my music people just started thinking that it was up for grabs. I had to get a lawyer to do a cease and desist on something. I had other videos that were going viral on TikTok also got muted for inexplicable reasons. But luckily, because through a lawyer, he hooked me up with someone at TikTok, and it took about 11 emails between about 11 different people to get them to unmute it. But there's no way you're getting a video unmuted on TikTok if you don't have some contact there, because the algorithm said when it says no, it's done. You're fucked. So yeah, those were the negatives of it, but it's largely outweighed by positives. But for a while, when I was getting those negative comments from people accusing me of ripping someone off, it took the fun out of it. I would be like, even if a video was going viral, I'd be going through the comments, people going, "You're amazing, this is great." And I'm going, yeah. I'm just waiting for the one comment where someone's going to fucking, oh, there it is. There's the person saying that I'm a fucking unoriginal bastard. And I'd just focus on that one comment and feel shit going, oh, this is so, this is so, it feels so unjust. This is my idea. And not knowing what to do and not wanting to become a drama queen and start talking about it publicly, but also I felt like my reputation was being damaged by that as well. So that was the biggest negative of the whole thing.
It's tricky, that, isn't it? And what you mentioned there about how no matter how many positive comments you can have, it's always that negative one that really strikes the core, I find. And like, you can have 10, 20, probably a lot more with these videos, but then you have that one negative comment, and it's that one that really grinds, and it's hard to dust it off. So I can imagine that's tricky, and that's hard. But I'm glad you carried on.
Thank you. I mean, I'm not bad at actually taking it on the chin. I'm perfectly fine with someone going, "You're like," someone said it the other day, "All your music sounds the fucking same," or all your tracks sound the same. And I just objectively was like, that's their opinion and they're entitled to it. And there may be a degree of truth to what they're saying. And someone else might say, your stuff's cheesy, or that's, rubbish or whatever. And I'm fine with that. But it's when someone's saying something that I'm like, no, this is actually not true. And this is not fair, because you're saying I'm doing something that I'm not. And this isn't an opinion. This is like a factual accusation that you're making. And that was what was grinding my fucking gears.
Because, like you said, it's it's not true, and the majority of people probably know it's not true, but it's still there, and it's still, people are going to read it, aren't they? And it's still defamation in a way, I can imagine that's incredibly frustrating.
No, I was going to say, then I remember I've seen other people going viral with nothing to do with music. You see some sketch, and then you'll see another person doing exactly the same sketch, and you're like, wait, who is the original? There's someone invent. So there's this whole free for all on social media with just nicking people's ideas, and there's this whole infrastructure that used to exist around intellectual property and protecting. Like, if you were a stand-up comedian, you did a routine, and then some other stand-up comedian came on stage and did exactly the same routine, that stand-up comedian would be dragged through the mud for plagiarizing that routine. And yet, the second it's all on social media, it's just the fucking wild west of everyone stealing everyone's ideas. So there's a part of me is going, well, you play the game. The fact that people are ripping you off indicates something, that it's a good idea. Maybe, I don't know.
I was going to say that. Yeah, it's like imitation is a form of flattery, isn't it? At the end of the day, so if people are doing, they obviously see it as having some sort of substance. One thing I did want to mention, and I know this happened on the weekend, was you were chatting to a fellow Devonian of mine on your Instagram live, of Matt Bellamy. He doesn't live down here anymore, admittedly. Well, you might do, but I don't think
he lives in California now.
Well, there we go. So he's not hanging out. I think it's either Teignmouth or Paignton, for the audience listening. I don't think he's there anymore. But yeah, how did that go? How did your conversation? I saw you were a bit starstruck in your Instagram story.
It wasn't so much starstruck. It was I shared that only because I think I ended that video by saying that's not like the most mental conversation I'd had this year, and it's definitely not. But it was maybe quite unique in that you got to see my real time reaction to this shit, because usually this stuff happens in DMs. Like, I've had people DM and I'm going, "Oh my god, fucking this sounds like this. What the hell? Who the hell is this person?" And he's probably like the most famous person in terms of like, I immediately knew who they were, whereas everyone else who's been hitting me up has been like someone where I'm like, who's this person? And then I'm like, fucking hell, how come I haven't heard this person? This huge producer or whatever. And I knew he'd started following me like a few months ago, and then I suddenly saw him, and actually my hesitation in the clip is I was like, wait, I think that's the lead singer of Muse, but I can't remember if it is, and I don't want to may say something wrong and get embarrass myself when actually it's not him. And then what you can't see on that clip is him saying, if you ever want to work together, let's do it. So that's me that's what's coming up on the screen as I'm reacting to it. But you know, when you screen cap, I didn't screen cap the comment, but all the people in the comments are like blowing up because there's about 200 people in there when this is happening. And then because first he says, where are you based? I'm like, and then he doesn't say anything, and I'm like, what do I do now? And so I'm like, I guess I should carry on with the life. And then whilst I'm answering a question about VSTs, it just pops up and says, if you ever want to work together. And I'm like, yes. And then we picked up in a conversation afterwards in DMs about doing something potentially. So we shall see. But like I say, I've learned that these things, you think something's going to happen and things don't always happen. So trying not to get excited is the other discipline that I've lowering your expectations all the time, because people say things and there's a big distance between a conversation starter and a thing getting over the finish line, especially at that level.
I can imagine. Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it's a lot of ideas, a lot of great ideas at the time that maybe don't come through with fruition, but that's still pretty cool though, man. Matt Bellamy just appeared like, yeah, let's work together on something. That would be. So I'm waiting for that picture of you with Matt Bellamy casually hanging out in California. That would be impressive.
The wildest conversation I've had this year was with a producer who reached out to me who I didn't know who they. Well, so a producer, a Grammy-winning producer for people like Rihanna and the Kid Laroi, reached out to me and then introduced me to another producer who happened to be in London at the time. And I went and met this guy who's American in a, it was the randomest thing. I met him in like a hotel bar at about midnight in Soho. And the conversation that ensued, he is a producer for a very famous singer. And I ended up then going to Los Angeles because I happened to be considering going to LA this year. So I was out there in June to go and see my good friend Ollie Ride, who sang on the song I made called Stranger Love. Sorry. And so I was going to see Ollie at the Troubadour, and then I kind of twinned it up with going out and meeting people, and I went and met back up with this guy, and I went to his studios in LA, and it was just wild, just gold discs like everywhere. There's so many gold discs you couldn't like move for them, and the conversations that I had with him about potentially working on stuff was like blood. It was like heart rate doubling conversations. It was so. I remember the first time I got put into a WhatsApp group with this guy before I met him, where this other producer said, "I'm going to put you in a WhatsApp with him now." It was like about 11:30 at night because we're 8 hours ahead of LA. And I was like nearly ready to go to bed, and I'm like going, fucking hell, I'm about to be in this WhatsApp group with this guy. Like what I say and how I conduct myself is in the next 30 seconds is going to be incredibly important. So yeah, I've had some mad conversations with people.
How do you? I mean, that's quite a high pressure environment, isn't it? At the end of the day, like you said, your heart rate's going. How do you sort of like keep your cool in those situations? So, like you say, I mean, you got that you're going to make that first impression, and in the music industry, that's everything, isn't it? I mean, you've got those 30 seconds, as you say. How do you make sure you keep? I mean, you can put the sunglasses on, that would help. But I mean, how do you keep your cool in those situations and remain grounded, and not fall under the pressure?
I mean, a lot of it's happening online, and I think one of the for like lucky bits of armor that I'm wearing is the armor of complete naivety, which is when you hear about people who are really successful because they just walk through life not realizing that they're just kind of naively doing stuff. I don't think I'm not naive in the sense of I think I'm great or I think I'm amazing or anything, or I have a particularly massively can-do attitude. I'm very self-critical, but the people who are reaching out to me, I genuinely didn't know who they were because I don't move in hip hop and rap and R&B circles. I don't spend a lot. So I had people who were like super high profile, who's like, I'm working with so-and-so. I've got so-and-so in the studio. And I'm like, cool, having no idea who they are, going like that. And then looking them up, going, I better look up this person. I'm like, holy shit, this person's got 400 million followers on Spotify. I've never heard of this person. Like, who the hell is this dude? Who the hell is that person? Like I'm working with a producer right now who I'm like, okay, he's got quite a high following on Instagram, but lots of people who have got high followings on Instagram and aren't necessarily anything. And then I go and look up his Wikipedia and I'm like, bloody hell, this guy's quite accomplished. And I'm having a drink with a mate who's in the business. And I'm like, oh, I'm working with this guy called, and he's like, holy shit. And I'm like, have you heard of him? And he's like, yeah, he's huge. And I'm like, I've never heard of him. So I think the fact that I don't seem to be impressed maybe gives off this air of being cool. And it's like, it's not that I'm not impressed. I literally haven't heard of these people. It's getting embarrassing as well. Like I was talking to someone from a really large record label and he's like, I'm working with so-and-so. Do you like, and I'm like, oh, right. And he's like, do you like them? And I'm like, I haven't, I'm sorry. I haven't actually heard of them. I know I feel like I should have heard. So it's like this cringy, like, Brit who hasn't heard of anyone.
yeah. Who's this guy? So
he's like, I'm doing something with Rihanna. You've heard of Rihanna? And I'm like, I have heard of her. I've heard of her.
Yeah.
Isn't she doing stuff with like underwear now? Or no. She's like, oh, okay, cool.
I can see what you mean there. Like you kind of like, because you don't know who these artists are, you're not I don't want to use this term Star Trek, but you're not like, you don't feel the pressure because you don't know who they are, which I think, like you say, works in your benefit at the moment, because then you can do that time and find out who they are off the back of that.
I mean, like if like Hans Zimmer DM'd me, I would lose my fucking shit. I'd be like running around the house screaming and crying and doing knee slides. But so, like, it's just because I haven't heard of these people. I'll be like, I'm about to be on the phone to Hans Zimmer.
Yeah, try not to break the sunglasses when you do the knee. To be fair, I mean, if Hans Zimmer contacted you, you did a knee slide and you broke the glasses, it's probably worth it, to be fair.
Dude,
I would say.
I'll blow up my house to meet Hans Zimmer.
Amazing. So we're coming towards the end now. We're almost approaching sort of 40 minutes, 45 minutes. I know these episodes go fast these days. This is an interesting one. If you could go back 12 months and give yourself a piece of advice, what would it be?
I think definitely would be, I was sort of ready for it, but and it's funny because I gave this advice to other people, which is if you are really trying to like blow yourself up on social media and you're seriously trying to implement a strategy to do it as a producer, plan for success and be ready to move incredibly quickly, because the window of opportunity, if you are lucky enough that lightning strikes and something happens, the attention will be on you very, very shortly, and then everyone will get bored and move on. And so in that window of attention, you better have something ready for people when they say, send me the demos, give me this, what are you working on, are you available, can you do that? They're only going to ask you that once or twice. And then if you don't have that ready, and I've had like messages where like a producer's been like, hey Ben, I'm in the studio with said famous person right now, have you got any beats for me? And if you haven't got them ready, they'll be like, oh yeah, they're gone now. And it could be like a window of like 2 hours or something that could happen in. So it's like the thing that I learned throughout this year was I literally started a Trello board to manage my contacts and conversations, because I started losing track of who I'd sent what to and what I was doing. I started like a little black book, which is essentially a spreadsheet of all the contacts who's getting phone numbers and email addresses for people. I was like, managing your contacts and managing those conversations started to become important. And so there is that like business side of it and understanding the legal side of it as well. So that would be my advice, which feels, and the thing is, if you rewinding back, it feels like something you go, oh, I can't be asked to prepare for that because this will never happen to me. It's like it's like, feels like planning for winning the lottery. Like, be ready in case you win $100 million or something. Like, you were like, well, it's never going to happen. So it feels like the easiest thing to not think about, and until it happens to you, and then you're caught off guard, and you're having to think on the fly as it's happening. And like I say, things could happen. Like, there's like 10 messages in your inbox, and they're all things you're like, shit, what do I say? What do I do? Do I need a lawyer? Do I need a manager? Do I need a thing? What do I say back to this person? Oh, I don't have a demo ready. Oh God, what do I do? So if you're not ready for it, you could miss it, and you might never get that opportunity again. So that, I guess, is the advice I would give. But
good stuff. I think it's a classic case of you got to strike while the iron's hot. Like you say, that you got to be ready to go. And it's interesting you mentioned like how if you were to 12 months ago, if I asked you that question, it would be interesting. I wish I had done now, to see what the answer would have been. But how do you deal with that then? Do you have this? I know we're approaching the end here, but you mentioned there about being able to send a beat, a track, an instrumental across. Do you have a library of songs ready? And also shout out to a fellow Trello user as well. I love Trello. Do you have a library of songs ready to go for in this instance? Are you in the background just creating this music now, so you've got it ready to go in case you get that call?
Yeah, and in the rap and R&B and hip hop world, the lot of the producers reaching out are wanting it to flip it to they don't want they're wanting to take it and then further flip it and add their own drums. So they're all about drums. So what you need ready is like versions without drums on it, and they're not all begging for stems. They actually are happy to just take like a WAV with no drums. It's a super Wild West. So I've just got a Dropbox that's got like 50 tracks in it without the drums on it, and some variations without the basses on it as well. The challenge I discovered was if you let too many people have access to it at the same time, you could find two different producers have zoned in on the same beat, and that happened to me. And one of them had got potentially a placement with someone quite famous, and one of them got potentially a placement with someone not quite as famous, and it got awkward. And I suddenly was caught in the middle of this with my lawyer going, what do you do? We've got to pause that one because this one might happen, but we'll lose this deal if this one turns out to be a nothing burger, which it feels like it might, but if it does happen, it could be like a fucking huge thing. So like I say, how all these high stakes conversations, and at the end of the year, I don't have anything particularly new to show for it other than a lot of wild conversations. Although I did work on a movie this year as well. Very briefly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. Is it out or is it coming out?
I don't even know if my cues will make it into it. It was for literally a Hollywood movie. But I didn't have Hans Zimmer in my DMs, but I had somebody who was like almost as prolific as Hans Zimmer, and
nice.
And I ended up working on a movie that's of quite a famous intellectual property, very associated with the 80s. But whether it's completely spooky as to whether it'll actually make it into the movie or not. And yeah, so I had a crash course in scoring movies. I was literally like working to the MIDI from a famous composer and it was very intense 2 weeks of following instructions. So there is no, again, the going viral thing is, I'd say there's you as always, you always have this nice idea that you can start in the shallow end and slowly acclimatize into the deep end. But sometimes you're like, there is no shallow end. Your options are say no or say yes, and yes takes you straight into something you don't know how to do, or it's terrifying. And the option is or don't, and that's quite intimidating.
Yeah, I can imagine, man. And all the while you're holding down this full-time job, and you're still putting out content on social media, finding the time to do that. So it's highly impressive.
It's pretty stressful. It's bizarre going back to work and just being in a meeting and thinking, like especially the Monday meeting where people are like, "How was your weekend?" And you're like, "I just don't." yeah. I just say like, "Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was cool." Yeah, you're like, because it sounds like bizarre. It would sound bizarre if I told people what I'd been up to like 24 hours ago or what I was working on or doing.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's why I.
Do they have any idea? Have you?
They do.
Have you shared
any
of your music or what you're doing with them?
people have discovered it. Got to the point where people were actually were seeing me on TikTok and coming up to me and going, "Oh my God, I saw one of your videos." Or I say coming up to me. Since the pandemic, I've been working from home, so actually home working has given me much more time because I don't have the hour and a half London nightmare before I'm back home. But this is the closest I've ever got to going. Might be the moment that I might be able to quit the day job. I mean, I'm less cautious people might have done it, might have quit in the situation I'm in, but I'm just a little bit. I don't want to kind of count my chickens before they're hatched, or whatever the phrase is. So maybe there is no perfect moment to take the risk, but I feel like there's been opportunities on the table. I'm like, if that happened and that happened, then I definitely am quitting the day job and I definitely am going full time. But until that happens and that happens, I don't feel confident quite enough to risk this. And then in 6 months' time, when all the attention's died down and the DMs stopped coming in and none of that shit happened, and now you're just left going, fuck, what do I do?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I totally get you with that. What would be interesting is if we get back in contact in 12 months' time and have another chat and see where you're at. If you're not too busy doing X, Y, Z.
It'll be like the trilogy. It'll be like the failed trilogy. It'll be like one year ago, you were a nobody. And then this year, we're like, oh my God, you're blowing up. And the year later, you'll be like, yeah, I'm back in the danger. Yeah, nothing happened. It was all shit, which I'm fully kind of expecting to happen. I literally don't have, like, people keep telling me, oh, it's going to happen for you. And like I said, I'm having these really high profile conversations, but yet nothing's quite landed enough to me to go, that's it. I'm on easy street for the rest of my life. So I never, I don't take anything for granted, and certainly not the attention. I keep waiting for the day I post a video and it gets 0 likes. Every time I press go, I'm like, is this the one where everyone's going to fall out of love with me and hate me and get bored, or I'll just, the algorithm's going to decide your time is over now, dude. You're in the doghouse and everyone's going to ignore you for the rest of forever. So I don't know. It'd be an interesting story arc, wouldn't it? If hopefully, like, it doesn't happen, but I'd love it to be like in a year's time, I'll be like, yes, I'm a mega famous fucking this and that, or mega successful. Although I don't actually strive to be.
I was going to say, I have to go through your management in that. It gets to that point where I'm having to reach out to management to, like, book time, and do that.
For the record, I have zero ambition to be well known or famous. I've always seen social media as a means to an end for doing actually what has started happening, which is to get the attention of bigger people than me, and to get jobs in film and in production. And I'd love to just be a ghost and part of a team of people making music for larger scale projects, and still walk down the street and no one know who I am. So I have the dream would be in a year's time to say, I don't have to do work anymore, and I'm making a ton of money as a producer. But, unfortunately, some people make it seem very easy. I don't know how everyone's doing it. Everyone's making so much money.
We've come to the end now. It's been great catching up. Really interesting. I love these stories as well. And as I say, it'd be great to do it again in 12 months. And fingers crossed, it'll be still that rise, and you'll be able to regale us with these various projects that have now been released. They mentioned, and some of these names as well, and be able to mention these names. So
I'd love to. I feel like it'll be like, the story will be like, yeah, it didn't happen in the end, but I can tell you now, it was. I think it will just be a load of like, I nearly made a story. I made a track with someone. But I was going to say, one of these days I'll come on Inside the Mix podcast and actually talk about mixing. Or talk about actual production. So this is the second time I've failed to talk about music.
Yeah. To be fair, I mean, this one I had set up to talk about, like, what happened in the 12 months, but we will get that sorted out where we can stream you creating. Maybe I'll give you like a situation and then you score it or something like that. Or maybe I'll give you a selection of situations just in case it doesn't suit. Make it a bit easier. And I think that'd be quite cool, actually.
Yeah. I mean, I do that in my lives. People will just be like, what about this? And I'm like, all right, I'll give it a go. And it ends up being something. But yeah, I mean, I was going to say, it would be the shortest podcast ever for my advice as a producer. It's like, I use all presets. I don't really know how to mix. I only just got speakers like 3 weeks ago for the first time ever. And just I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah, I think it'd be we'd come at it from like a product. I'd be like, yeah, we'll just score something rather than mix it. Yeah, we're loosely attend. To be fair, the podcasters range. You know, we have these conversations like we have today, and then sometimes it's mixing, mastering, sometimes it's production. So it's all good there. But I know for a fact there's going to be a lot of listeners eager to listen to this one. So I'm excited to drop this one. But Sunglasses Kid, if our audience hasn't heard of you and they don't know where to find you, we've mentioned TikTok and Instagram already, but what handles should they be going for or looking for rather?
TikTok and Instagram, same handle is at Sunglasses Kid Music. It's just Sunglasses Kid on Spotify. And just, I feel like I've said this sentence 12,000 times this year about where you can find my music, because I've had suddenly a whole load of new people who don't know who I am, who seem incapable of just Googling my name. But just Google Sunglasses Kid Music. I have discovered that if you've never Googled my name before, you will get met with lots of children's sunglasses. But if you type Sunglasses Kid Music, Sunglasses Kid Bandcamp, Sunglasses Kid whatever, you'll find me. I'm on everything. But yeah, like I said, all the music in the last year on my Instagram is yet to be released. It's all sitting in the car park. And hopefully in 2024, at some point, I will try and unleash a full instrumental album of the tracks that people are asking for.
That'd be amazing. Look forward to that. Cool. I will call it there because I'm going to allow you to enjoy the rest of your evening. Because
you too.
I imagine it is the working week as well, isn't it? So
it is.
You've got to get up and go to work. But there we go. I will catch up with you soon, and I'll keep tabs on what you're doing, and then we'll do it all again in 12 months. I'll speak to you soon, buddy. Just a friendly reminder before you go, don't miss out on your free test master at Synth Music Mastering. Imagine enhancing your music with my dedicated commitment to quality and that personalized touch. And guess what? It's absolutely free of charge. So claim your free test master now at synthmusicmastering.com or click on the link in the episode description.